The New York Giants are a joke, dude. They are 2-8, and really, it feels like they are getting worse every single week. And of course, that makes sense. They are starting their third string quarterback who was on the practice squad until a few weeks ago, Tommy Devito. New York has lost 3 in a row, and honestly, I don't know how much worse things could get in New York. The Giants, they just faced the Cowboys for the second time this season, and somehow you can argue that it went better than the first time they played, which is really concerning because they lost 49-17. It was Tommy DeVito's first NFL start, and he did play. And for what it was, honestly, it could have been a lot worse. He went 14 of 27 for only 86 yards. He had 2 touchdowns and had an interception, and it felt like those touchdowns did come pretty late. Things didn't really matter too much. I mean, the Cowboys ended up having backups in for most of the fourth quarter. This one was very much over. DeVito did also rush 7 times for 41 yards. He has definitely looked bad, but things could be worse, I think, somehow. He played for the first time in week 8 after Tyrod Taylor got hurt, and then he came in week 9 after Daniel Jones got hurt. So back-to-back injuries to the 2 guys in front of him. Now both are on injured reserve, and I guess it's DeVito's team from here on out, unless, of course, the Giants would like to turn to Matt Barkley. And throwing out Tommy DeVito and Matt Barkley as a quarterback tandem every week should be illegal. Now, sadly, I've watched my fair share of Tommy DeVito games. He was at Syracuse for 5 years and ended up losing the Orange starting job as a redshirt senior in 2021 to Garrett Schrader. Schrader has certainly had his moments at SU. So, after losing the job, Tommy DeVito decided to transfer to Illinois and was okay. I mean, he had 21 total touchdowns and 4 interceptions. They were ranked at one point. They had some good players on that team, like Devin Witherspoon and Quan Martin. Tommy DeVito actually had these moments in college where he really did flash, but there is obviously a reason why he went undrafted. He's not an NFL quarterback, but still, I'm having a good time watching him. He's somebody that I never thought I'd be watching play on the NFL stage when I was watching him in college. And you know, here's what's crazy is you wouldn't know it, but he actually still lives with his parents. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that storyline in the last week. Since DeVito was named the starter, all we're hearing about is how this dude still lives with his parents, which is cool. I get that's kind of a cool storyline, but we gotta start talking about something else. We are getting it force-fed every single time, whether it's on the broadcast or I'm opening up Twitter, I'm hearing about how this guy lives with his parents. And honestly, for him, that's probably the right move. You don't actually know what he's going to be doing next season, which roster he's going to be on, if he's going to be on a practice squad, if he's going to be on a roster, who knows? We don't even know if DeVito is going to be the starter for the rest of this season. Tyrod Taylor is dealing with a rib injury. He said that it isn't season ending in his mind, so I guess we're going to have to just wait and see on him. But man, you got to feel for Tyrod Taylor. It feels like every single time he gets a starting nod or anything, he just gets hurt. It sucks to see. I've been following Tyrod Taylor for essentially his entire career from the point where he got drafted by the Ravens on, just because he was, you know, a Virginia guy, went to Virginia Tech. He was always easy to just watch, and it really feels like he, without the injuries, could have actually been an okay NFL quarterback. Tyrod could come back. Daniel Jones certainly is not. He tore his ACL, so he is done for the season, and that's going to make it really difficult for the Giants to decide what to do at quarterback next season. The Giants, they gave Daniel Jones a 4-year, $160 million deal in the offseason. That's a very big commitment, but when you look at the details of the contract, it really is just a 2-year deal. They can definitely get out of it if they want to, and I think they might want to. If the season were to end today, the Giants would have the 2nd overall pick at the draft, and personally, I just think it would be very hard to pass up on a Caleb Williams Williams or a Drake May if it came down to it. Daniel Jones has mostly underperformed in his time in New York, and last season was a bit of an outlier, but it's not exactly like he was playing well this year before he went down with his torn ACL. He had just 2 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. It's been a tough year. Last season was his best in the league by a ton. It's why he got that contract. It all made sense, but it really does feel like an outlier. Last year, Brian Daboll took over as the head coach, and it really did feel like everything had switched in New York. The Giants pretty much came out of nowhere and went 9-7-1 and snuck into the postseason, and then managed to beat the Vikings in the wild card round. Brian Daboll ended up winning Coach of the Year, and it really did feel like everything was going super well for the Giants. But still, there were a lot of questions, and one of those was whether or not the Giants had hit their ceiling. Did they perform as well as they possibly could? It's not like the roster was very good. Honestly, I was surprised that they were able to make the playoffs, even more surprised that they were able to win a game, and a lot of those concerns have come to light this season, and it's already been a long year for Giants fans. Those 2 games against the Cowboys have definitely been the worst of it. They've been outscored 89-17 in those 2 games against Dallas this season. The Giants are 2-8. They've only won 2 games this season, one of which was a win over the Cardinals. That was literally a historic comeback. If it weren't for a historic comeback, they'd be 1-6. Their one, I guess, true win that they didn't have to come back was a 14-7 win over the Commanders that still haunts me at night, and I don't want to talk. I don't know how we only scored 7 points against the Giants. It's brutal. Now, the Giants do have some easier games coming up, but that doesn't mean that they're gonna win, because they're terrible. Tommy DeVito lining up behind center for every game isn't exactly inspiring, and you have to wonder, even with an easier schedule, how many more games can they win this season? They get the Commanders again, who are already slated as a double-digit favorite. You know how bad you have to be in order to be a double-digit underdog against the Washington Commanders? Then they play the Patriots, who are one of the worst teams in football, currently would have the 3rd overall pick. Then the Packers, who have just been hard to watch this year. I had some pretty high expectations for Jordan Love coming into this season, but he's just been rough. That Packers team is bad. The wide receivers are bad. I think they got worse since Christian Watson's come back. It's just a mess in Green Bay. Then the Saints, who were they're kind of just mid. They're not very interesting. That Patriots game could really end up being a big deal and could essentially decide who gets the 2nd or 3rd overall pick when we look back at it. Like I said, Patriots would have the 3rd overall pick right now, and it definitely is starting to seem like they are going to be in the market for a quarterback. Bill Belichick won't even commit to Mac Jones at this point. Who knows if Bill Belichick's even going to be the head coach next year? I think New England is going quarterback at the draft at this point, so the Giants really do need to stay ahead of them. Then the only other 2-8 team in football right now is the Cardinals, who the Giants did beat. They're kind of confusing. I think Kyler Murray is going to come back, play pretty well, so we'll have to see from there. And then the Panthers, they're pretty solidified as the worst team in the league at 1-8, but it's not even their 1st round pick. It's the Bears. Then, after all them, the Giants get to end the season with the Eagles twice and the Rams. I am somewhat confident the Eagles' backups could beat the Giants at this point, so that definitely bodes well for draft position for them. Honestly, at this point for the Giants, just get the best pick possible and get a new quarterback. It feels like last season was a bit of a fluke, and it's time to figure some things out in New York. Brian Daboll's a good coach. He wouldn't have been able to take kind of a weak roster to the playoffs and even win a game if he wasn't, but I do think some things really need to change. But honestly, I'm going to enjoy sitting back every week, watching Giants games, and eventually watch Tommy DeVito ride into the sunset before the Giants draft a quarterback at the draft.